Imagine someone in your own community, maybe Sarah, a retired teacher. She's spent decades there, built her life, friendships, everything. And now housing costs is climbing, really climbing, and she's facing this awful possibility of having to leave, losing all those connections. It's happening everywhere.
It really is. But there might be a solution that's surprisingly close. Maybe even, right in the backyard. We're talking about accessory dwelling units. ADU.
Suppose, right?
Yeah. So basically, it's a small, separate living space on the same property as the main house. It could be detached, like a little cottage back there, or attached maybe over the garage or in an attic, or even, converting a basement space. People call them all sorts of things, right? Granny flats, laneway houses, in-law suites.
I have lots of names for it.
But the core idea, flexible, smaller living spaces.
Okay, so this deep dive is basically your shortcut, right? We're going to unpack everything you need to know designing, financing, building an ADU. We're drawing heavily from a really comprehensive AARP guide. So, yeah, let's dig into this. How could an ADU help someone like Sarah, or maybe even you? Let's start with the human side of this housing crunch. There's a quote from labor economist Teresa Ghilarducci that really hits home. She says basically that nowhere in the U.S. do most middle-class older workers have enough saved to retirement to keep their standard of living. People are anxious, their money doesn't go as far. That's pretty sobering, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And that's where ADUs, they offer a really powerful, efficient kind of solution. They're creative, definitely, but also very cost-effective compared to other housing options.
How cost-effective are we talking?
Well, think about this. An ADU might cost only like a third of what a similar-sized traditional multifamily unit costs to build.
Wow, a third.
Yeah, potentially, which is huge. It's not just a number. It means we could actually boost the supply of market rate housing pretty quickly, take some pressure off local markets. It can make a real difference for folks.
And it's not just about the money, is it? People are looking at ADUs for all sorts of reasons. What are some of the maybe more personal drivers you see in the research?
Oh, it's fascinating. A big one is definitely an alternative to nursing homes. Letting older parents or relatives age right there in the community near family.
But with their own space.
Exactly, with their own independence.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a real push for multi-generational living, too.
Yeah.
Families wanting to be close, support each other, but not, tripping over each other.
Right. Separate but connected.
Precisely. And yes, for someone like Sarah on a fixed income, that extra rental income can be absolutely vital, a lifeline, really.
So it sounds like there's real interest. What do the numbers say? Are people actually open to this?
Yeah, the data is quite strong. That AARP Home and Communities survey back in 2018, it found 67%, two-thirds of adults, would consider living in an ADU to be close to someone but still have their own space.
Wow.
And about a third would actually consider building one. Get this, almost two-thirds of adults 65 and older said they'd build one specifically to house a caregiver.
That's huge. So it's not just a niche thing.
No, not at all. It feels like a real shift towards more flexible, community-focused ways of living.
Okay, so the why makes a ton of sense. But the how, that seems like where people hit a wall, right? Feels like a maze sometimes. What's the first big hurdle? And are cities doing anything to, clear the path a bit?
You nailed it. The first and often biggest hurdle is local zoning regulations. These rules dictate everything. Can you even build one? How big can it be? How tall? Where exactly on the property can it sit? It's the starting point.
And often those rules throw up barriers, like needing extra parking spots, which can just kill a project before it starts, especially in cities.
Absolutely. It can feel like one step forward, two steps back sometimes.
But some places are trying to change that narrative, right? Offering incentives.
Yes, thankfully. We're seeing cities doing things like waiving permit fees, speeding up the review process. Some even offer pre-approved designs to simplify things.
Pre-approved designs, okay.
Yeah, it helps cut through some of that initial red tape and, frankly, the cost. If you want to see a place that's really leaned into this, look north to Vancouver, British Columbia. They've been working on this since the late 80s. They legalized thousands of existing ADUs and just systematically got rid of rules that didn't make sense.
What does their approach look like? What makes it work so well?
Well, for starters, no extra off-street parking needed per ADU. That's huge.
Yeah.
No requirement for the owner to live on site. You can have both an attached and a detached ADU on one lot. And crucially, they give homeowners a lot of flexibility on size, height, placement. They treat them more like additions, less like brand new houses needing totally separate everything.
That sounds incredibly forward-thinking. Let's put that into perspective for us here in the U.S. The guide mentions that if Oakland, California just matched Vancouver's ADU rate, they could add something like 25,000 ADUs.
Exactly. 25,000. And remember, at the time of that report, Oakland had around 2,700 people without permanent housing. It shows the scale of the potential impact.
So how do the U.S. cities in the guide, Austin, Denver, Oakland, D.C., how do they compare to that Vancouver benchmark?
Well, honestly, their current numbers are significantly lower. It really highlights how much potential is still untapped here, largely due to those regulatory hurdles we talked about. There's a whole spectrum of how cities are approaching this.
Okay, let's zoom in on a few specifics from those U.S. cities. What's something interesting happening in Austin, Texas?
Austin's doing something pretty innovative.
Hmm.
They allow ADUs to be sold separately, like a condo.
Really?
Yeah.
Sell off the backyard unit.
Yep. Using a condo model. And that's getting a lot of attention because it gives homeowners a way to access capital, or it allows someone else to buy a smaller, maybe more affordable home. Plus, they allow pretty large ADUs, up to 1,100 square feet, and wave parking if you're near transit.
Okay. And Denver, what's their angle?
Denver's program is more focused, mainly targeting existing structures, like old carriage houses, which makes sense, leveraging their history. Sizes range from a minimum of 200 square feet up to maybe 650 or 1,000, depending on the lot. It's a more tailored approach.
And Oakland, you mentioned them earlier. What makes their approach stand out, especially with incentives?
Oakland has some really good things going. No owner occupancy needed, no extra parking near transit. Those are big. But the real game changers might be things like Alameda County's low-interest loan program, specifically for conversions. Also, how they calculate property tax based on construction cost, not the potentially huge jump in market value. That saves homeowners a lot down the road.
Ah, that's smart.
And they have a same-day planning review process sometimes. Plus, state law in California, SB 169, helps a ton. It means ADUs aren't treated as totally new houses for things like utility hookup fees. They don't always need separate utility connections or fire sprinklers if the main house doesn't have them. These seem small, but they tackle some of the really costly, frustrating hurdles.
Makes ADUs much more feasible for the average person.
Exactly.
Okay, last one. Washington, D.C. What's the story there?
D.C. also allows ADUs to be sold separately, like Austin. And back in 2016, they made ADUs matter of right, which should mean they're generally allowed without a huge fight.
Should be the operative word.
Well, yeah. Despite that legal clarity, not that many have actually been built. It seems other restrictions are still getting in the way, like rules requiring the main house to be certain minimum size, which varies depending on the zone. So even with one barrier down, others pop up.
It really brings it back to the people, doesn't it? These aren't just zoning codes, they impact lives. The guide includes quotes from residents.
Yeah, they're quite powerful. An Oakland resident just talking about the confusion of the approval process, saying, if I could build next month, I would. My family would all help. It's the process itself stopping them. And someone in D.C. talking about rising rents and losing that sense of community. Something is lost when our neighborhoods fade away. There isn't a place to gather. ADUs can help preserve that fabric.
Absolutely. So for you listening, if you're starting to think maybe an ADU could work for you, for a parent, for income like Sarah, the guide suggests starting pretty simply. First step, call your local planning or zoning department. Just ask, are ADUs allowed here?
Right. Get the basic rules, setbacks, parking, size limits.
Then, grab a tape measure, go outside and see where one might actually fit on your property. Just the basics to start. Okay, beyond the rules, which are clearly a big piece, the next giant question is usually money, financing. What does this actually cost and how on earth do you pay for it?
Yeah, the money talk. So typically the biggest slice of the pie is construction, maybe 70–80% of the total cost.
Right.
Then you've got fees for architects or designers, maybe 8 to 15%. A property survey, maybe 5%. Permits, utility hookups, that's usually around 3%. It adds up. It's a real investment.
And finding that investment money seems to be a major roadblock. That survey you mentioned earlier, Portland, Seattle, Vancouver ADU owners, over a third, 34%, said just finding a loan was the hardest part. And another 18% pointed to covering the construction cost itself.
It's true. Accessing capital is tough. But there are standard ways people finance these. A home equity line of credit, a HELOC, is common. It's like a second mortgage. Using the equity you already have in your home, you usually need about 20% equity for that.
Okay, so you need equity built up.
Right. Or you could refinance your main mortgage, pull out cash that way if your home value has gone up or you've paid down principal.
Yeah.
Then there are specific renovation loans. HUD has the 203K loan, often used for attached units. Fannie Mae has a home-style renovation loan, good for detached ADUs too.
What's special about those renovation loans?
The key thing, and this is a potential game changer, is they're often based on the after-rehab value of your property.
Meaning what the property will be worth after the ADU is built.
Exactly. So the lender considers the future value you're creating, not just what your house is worth today. That can help you borrow more than you might otherwise qualify for. And believe it or not, some people even look at loans from their retirement accounts, like a 401k or 403b, though that needs careful consideration.
Okay, lots of options. But what does it take to qualify? And what about the potential rent? Can you use that to help get the loan?
Generally, yeah, you'll likely need a decent credit score, say 680 or higher, and your total debt should be more than about 45% of your income. But here's a common frustration. Most traditional lenders don't count the rent you expect to get from the ADU when deciding if you qualify for the loan.
Even though that income is often the whole point.
Right. It seems counterintuitive. Although Fannie Mae's Home Ready loan is starting to change that, allowing some future rent to be considered. That's a positive development.
So it sounds like there's still a gap. What if you don't have tons of equity and you don't want to refinance your whole primary mortgage?
That's exactly it. We call it the financing gap. There aren't many standard established second mortgage options specifically for ADUs for people in that situation right now. It's a real challenge.
But things are evolving. Are there creative solutions popping up to try and fill that gap?
Yes, definitely. We're seeing some interesting models emerge. One is like a seller financing or developer model. A developer might build the ADU on your land, own it initially, pay you some of the rent, and then you have an option to buy it from them later.
Interesting partnership.
Yeah. Then there are public or philanthropic grants and soft loans. Like Housing Trust Silicon Valley has programs offering everything from a small planning grant up to a $200,000 construction loan with favorable terms. And some areas are creating local loan pools. Baltimore's Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative, for instance, pulled together private funds to offer below-market rate loans specifically for projects like ADUs.
So innovation is happening, which is good news.
It is. But even with these options,
I can still imagine someone like Sarah, our retired teacher, feeling pretty hesitant about taking on new debt, managing contractors.
yeah,
It's a big undertaking.
you're absolutely right. And it really highlights the need for much more education and outreach. We need to make the process clearer, build trust, and show people that, yes, it's work, but it's achievable and the benefits can be huge.
Okay, so you've jumped through the regulatory hoops, you've figured out the financing. Now comes the fun part, maybe, the design, bringing this thing to life. Where do you even start thinking about what your ADU should look like?
It really circles back to that fundamental question. Why are you building it? Is it for your aging parents, a recent grad, a caregiver? Is it purely an income generator? That why is going to shape almost every design choice. And a really important principle here is adaptability.
Adaptability, meaning?
Meaning, design it so it can change as needs change. Maybe incorporate universal design from the start, things like wider doorways, step-free entry. Make it usable for someone with limited mobility now or later. Think future-proof.
That makes sense. And the guide mentioned something surprising about cost and size.
Yes. The paradox, right?
Yeah.
Generally, the larger the ADU, the lower the cost per square foot to build it.
Which feels backward, but I guess fixed costs like kitchens and bathrooms get spread out more.
Exactly. Your foundation, roof, plumbing, electrical basics, those costs don't scale linearly with square footage. So building slightly larger might actually be more cost-effective per square foot, making more spacious, livable units potentially more attainable than people think.
Okay, so when you're planning the space, especially if it's smaller, how do you make those trade-offs?
It's all about priorities. Do you absolutely need a giant professional-style range? Or would a smaller cooktop and maybe a convection microwave work, freeing up counter space? Same with a fridge. Maybe an under-counter model works fine and gives you room for a small desk area. The good news is the market is responding. There are tons of great compact appliances and furniture options out there now.
The guide actually shows 3 sample designs, which is super helpful for visualizing. Can you walk us through those, maybe thinking about who they're for?
Sure. Let's start with the small one, about 350 square feet. Think maybe perfect for that retired teacher, Sarah, looking for rental income, or maybe a single person. Cost per square foot might be around $350. Total project costs, maybe $110,000 to $122,000-ish. Takes about 4-6 months to build. It's often an open studio layout. This particular design really emphasizes the connection to the outside with a nice deck, extending the living space.
Nice. Okay, what about the medium size, around 525 square feet?
This one gets a bit more cost-effective per square foot, maybe $225, $250. Total cost could be $118,000 to $131,000, taking 6-9 months. This size is great for maybe multi-generational living or someone needing more accessibility features. The sample design has a deck built for universal entry, for instance. It offers a good bit more breathing room.
And then the large ADU, about 800 square feet, who benefits most here?
This is where that cost per square foot really drops, maybe $160 to $225. Total project cost might range from $128,000 up to $180,000. Takes longer, maybe 9-12 months. This size could work for a small family or someone downsizing from the main house but still wanting a guest room or an office. You really benefit from the economies of scale here.
So, across these sizes, what are some key design features that make a big difference in how livable and accessible they feel?
Definitely step-free entrances. Having the bedroom, a full bathroom, and the kitchen all on the main level is huge for aging in place or mobility issues. Doors should be wider, ideally 36 inches. Use non-slip flooring, especially in kitchens and baths. And think about space-saving tech. Wall-mounted tankless water heaters save floor space, compact stackable, or all-in-one washer dryers. Every inch matters.
Good tips. And it's worth saying, Enright, for the actual construction plans, you almost always need a licensed architect or engineer. Getting professional help is crucial.
Absolutely. Don't try to wing that part. When you look at places like Vancouver or Portland, Seattle, their success really shows what's possible when you remove those unnecessary regulatory roadblocks. It genuinely expands housing choices. And the U.S. cities in the guide, Austin, Denver, Oakland, D.C., they all have that same potential to really move the needle in their communities if they follow suit.
It's clear that building an ADU is a big undertaking. It takes a real investment of your time, your energy, your resources. You really have to educate yourself on the rules, the financing, the design, finding good builders, and definitely lean on experts when you need them. But the potential rewards are pretty compelling, aren't they? Financial breathing room for someone like Sarah, better ways to care for family, keeping generations connected, and actually building more affordable, livable neighborhoods.
Exactly. And if ADUs really can help tackle these big issues, housing insecurity, aging with dignity, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How might these small, flexible homes fundamentally reshape our neighborhoods socially and economically in the years to come? What does that future look like where more people can genuinely afford to stay or create a home?